A city doctor's incredible ACT saved a bleeding man revealed to be her fiancé, the CEO. Dr. Emily Hayes stood at the threshold of the emergency room, her heart pounding in tandem with the sirens echoing in the distance. She could already feel the chaos unfurling. The bright lights overhead cast a harsh glow, reflecting her stark reality, a life spent saving the broken while grappling with her own insecurities. With each patient she treated, she packed her compounding fears away, but they had a way of clawing back to the surface. After a week consumed by wedding planning with James, the polished CEO who seemed like he had the world at his fingertips, Emily felt torn between two lives. She had grown up in a hardworking family, where compassion and sacrifice were everyday lessons. James, on the other hand, carried the weight of privilege like a warm designer coat. It was almost too easy for him to navigate the world. As she prepared herself for another whirlwind day, doubts crept in like shadows. Was she truly ready to step into his world of champagne toasts and guarded expectations? Suddenly, the shrill sound of a police siren pierced through the air, announcing the arrival of trauma cases. A shooting. Her body instinctively sprang into action. Within moments, a flood of patients poured in, and Emily's hands deftly moved from one life to the next. Young and old, each life told a story of loss and resilience, igniting a fierce determination in her to save every soul that crossed her path. But then, as if the universe had twisted the knife, the unmistakable name rooted her to the spot. James. The world fell away. Voices blurred into a distant hum. The chaos redefined itself, morphing into a nightmare she never saw coming. Her fiancé bleeding out on the stretcher, eyes closed, skin pale. A tidal wave of emotion crashed over her. "Hang on, James. Please," she whispered, urgency sharpening her focus. Memories flooded back, his laughter, their shared dreams, the little moments that had woven their lives together. Yet, laid bare beneath the stark lights, she felt the stark truth: James had tried so hard to prove himself. And it was all the more evident now. Their love story, once devoid of tension, resonated with the weight of expectations they both felt trapped by. As she worked tirelessly, she remembered the pressure he felt from his world while ignoring the pain that followed him. It hurt to acknowledge that, despite the engagement ring sparkling on her finger, they were practically strangers navigating tumultuous waters. They wore masks, pretending to fit seamlessly in each other's lives. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Time slowed as she grasped the scalpel, each heartbeat a reminder of what was at stake. The room buzzed with urgency, but all she could hear were the echoes of their dreams clashing. Would they still stand together after this? With every stitch she fought for a chance for them to bridge the chasm of their worlds. As life hung in the balance, she poured every ounce of hope into saving him. Would they confront their disparities and redefine what love meant? The answer loomed before her, heavy and uncertain. All that mattered now was the breath of life she so desperately fought to preserve, because in this moment, they were not just doctor and patient. They were two souls desperately navigating a love that could still be reborn or lost forever. The steady beeping of the monitors filled the room, punctuating the tense silence as Emily finished the last stitch. Sweat dripped down her brow, but her focus remained unwavering. She whispered a silent prayer, a plea for James to fight, to pull through. With every flick of her wrist, she stitched together not just skin and muscle, but the fragile threads of their relationship that felt frayed and frayed even more with each passing second. "Dr. Hayes." A voice broke through her trance, snapping her back into the hectic reality of the emergency room. It was Dr. Arnold, her supervising physician. His voice was steady, but Emily could see concern in his eyes. "He's stable for now, but we need to monitor his vitals closely. Can you give me an update?" Emily nodded, still in disbelief that just moments ago, she had entered a world of chaos where she could lose the man she loved, her fiancé. "He has a gunshot wound to his abdomen. I've done all I can for now," she managed to say, her voice steadier than her heart felt. "We need to keep him under observation." "Good work," Dr. Arnold said. clapping her shoulder before walking away to check on other patients. The praise felt like a brief moment of warmth in an otherwise cold, clinical environment. Emily turned back to James, who lay eerily still, the machines producing a steady rhythm of beeps that somehow became both comforting and terrifying. It was a rhythm that matched her heartbeat as fear gripped her. Would he wake up? What would happen if he did? She delved into her thoughts, and with each passing moment, the enormity of their relationship crashed over her. They had so much to unravel. She had always envisioned a perfect wedding, a beautiful life together. But now, standing beside this hospital bed, those dreams seemed clouded by doubt. Had they truly known each other? Was love alone enough to overcome the worlds they came from? As if sensing her turmoil, James's eyes fluttered open. For a moment he looked lost, and Emily felt her heart ache at the emptiness in his gaze. "Emily?" His voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. Don't talk. You need to rest," she urged, bending closer. Tears blurred her vision. She couldn't fully understand if they were born from relief or heartache. "I am sorry I didn't want you to see me like this." His attempt at a smile faltered as he winced. She took a deep breath, knowing all the questions swirling in her mind wouldn't matter, unless he was alive and well. "You don't get to apologize, James," she said, her voice trembling. "You scared me half to death. Just focus on getting better, okay? We'll figure this out." But even as she said it, uncertainty gnawed at her insides. Would they find a way to truly connect after everything that had happened? "We need to talk," he began, but Emily shook her head. "No, not now. Right now I just need you to rest. We'll talk later." As she settled into the chair beside him, the weight of everything bore down on her. Moments slipped into hours and Emily found herself dozing, the exhaustion of the day finally catching up with her. In her dreams she saw glimpses of their life together, laughter mingling with shadows of expectation and fear. But when she woke, the room was dark save for the pale glow of the monitor. James was still there but seemed lost again. A sense of foreboding filled the air. What awaited them both once the dawn broke, and he woke once more? Would they still be the same people who had dared to love against the odds, or had the world fundamentally shifted beneath them in those harrowing minutes? The dawn's light crept into the room, illuminating the hope and confusion that hung thick in the air. Just then the door creaked open and a familiar face stepped in. It was Caleb, James's best friend and business partner. The worry etched into his features sent a chill through Emily. "Is he okay?" Caleb asked, his voice low as he fixed his gaze on James. As she hesitated, felt her heart racing again, knowing this moment could change everything. But before she could respond, a sudden commotion echoed from the hallway, pulling both their attention. Emily stood abruptly, her pulse quickening, unsure of what was unfolding. "What is happening?" she whispered, her instincts alerting her to danger. Caleb turned to her, his expression shifting from concern to something urgent. "Emily, we need to know what's really going on here. There are things about James, about this whole situation that you don't understand." And in that sharp moment, a dark shadow fell over them, wrapping them tight as the way forward suddenly felt exceedingly unclear. Emily's breath quickened as she processed Caleb's words. There was a gravity in his tone she had never heard before, something that wrapped around her heart with a feeling of dread. "What do you mean?" she asked, an edge of urgency creeping into her voice. Caleb took a step closer, his eyes darting between the hospital bed and Emily. "I can't explain everything right now, but you don't know the reasons behind what happened to James. There are things about his business dealings, about people he's crossed, that you need to understand." She shook her head, trying to push back the rising panic. "This isn't the time for cryptic messages, Caleb. He needs to recover, not hear about threats or enemies. If he's going to make it, we need to focus on him." Caleb's expression softened, but the tension in his shoulders remained. "You don't get it. It's bigger than what we see. James is involved in something dangerous, and I'm afraid it's going to catch up with him, with both of us." Emily felt the weight of his words. How could she be dealing with more than just a gunshot wound? She was already spinning in a whirlwind of emotions, fighting for James and praying for his healing. Now this, the beeping of the monitor became a steady reminder of the time slipping away. "I just need him to wake up and be okay," she whispered, her voice cracking under the strain. Just then James stirred, groaning softly as he shifted in the bed. He murmured, the haze of pain still evident in his eyes. Emily rushed to his side, pressing her hand to his. "I'm right here, babe. Just focus on me." She looked back at Caleb, who stepped back, sensing the intimate moment unfolding. James blinked, confusion clouding his gaze. Emily could see him trying to piece together the fragments of consciousness. "What happened?" "You were shot. But you're safe now and you'll be okay," she reassured him, forcing a smile despite the uncertainty clawing at her heart. "Just rest for now." He clenched her hand, his grip strong, but his eyes held a storm of emotions. "Emily, I remember." She interrupted. "No talking. You need to conserve your strength." But James shook his head slightly, determination flaring in his gaze. "I need to tell you, Caleb is right. You have to know the truth, it's important." Fear prickled at the back of her mind. "Not now, James. Just rest. We can talk about everything later. Promise." Suddenly, outside the room, the clamor grew louder. Someone shouted and Emily's heart dropped. She turned to Caleb, whose face had gone pale. "I think we need to leave now." "It's not safe here," he said urgently. "Leave? Are you serious?" Emily's heart raced. "James's, I'll keep him safe, but we need to get out." Before a loud crash echoed through the corridor, causing Emily to freeze in place. Her instincts fired. She had to protect James, but how could they move him without more risk? Before she could respond, Caleb grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the door. "Emily, listen. You're in danger too. I won't let anything happen to you, but we have to go right now." Dread settled in her stomach. What kind of danger? Where would they go? But there was no time to think. They had to act, to escape whatever darkness loomed outside their hospital sanctuary. As they stepped toward the door, Emily looked back at James, his eyes wide and brimming with worry. "I'll be right back, I promise." But as she crossed the threshold, the chaos outside seemed to magnify, and a deep shiver of uncertainty washed over her. What awaited them in the chaos beyond those walls? And as they moved through the hospital corridors, she couldn't shake the feeling that their lives were unraveling in ways she could never have imagined. What had James gotten himself into? And would they all make it out alive? The sounds of chaos erupted around them as Emily and Caleb hurried down the dimly lit corridor. The distant wails of sirens and muffled voices clashed against the sharp beeping of medical equipment, creating a jarring backdrop to her racing thoughts. Every fiber of her being screamed to rush back to James, to stay by his side, but Caleb's grip was firm. "Keep moving, Emily," he urged, casting worried glances over his shoulder. "We can't afford to be caught here." She nodded, her heart pounding fiercely in her chest. "What is happening? Who would want to hurt us?" Caleb's jaw tightened. "I can't explain now, but whoever it is, they're not far behind." The stark, sterile walls of the hospital felt suddenly foreign, turning from a haven to a trap. Each footstep felt heavy as they navigated the maze-like hallways. Emily's mind flashed back to James, lying vulnerable in that bed. The thought of leaving him behind twisted her stomach. He needed her. But as they reached a staircase, another crash echoed from the main entrance, rattling her resolve. The fear of what lay behind them pushed her onward. They slipped down the stairs and each step dragged Emily deeper into a realm of uncertainty. Outside, the night air bit at her skin, starkly contrasting the sterile warmth of the hospital. Silence blanketed the parking lot, a stark indicator of the turmoil that had just unfolded. Emily looked desperately around, her eyes scanning for any familiar face, anyone who might help. Their breaths mingled with the chill of the night as Caleb pulled her towards his car. "Get in." His voice was steady, but his eyes were sharp with urgency. She glanced back toward the hospital entrance, the flickering fluorescent lights casting eerie shadows. What if they come after us? What if they know we left? Caleb gripped her arm lightly, but his gaze was firm. "If they're here, we'll deal with it. Right now, we need to break away and figure out the next step. Trust me." With a hesitant breath, Emily climbed into the passenger seat, her heart a tumultuous mix of fear and determination. As Caleb slid into the driver's seat, she couldn't shake the feeling of dread creeping in. "Caleb, we can't just leave James there. He's in danger too." The words flew from her, filled with a desperation she couldn't contain. "James is a fighter," he replied, his tone powerful yet soothing. "But right now his safety is at risk. We need to regroup. We need a plan." Before she could argue further, the engine roared to life, cutting through the stillness of the night. As they pulled away, her heart ached for James, anxiety tightening around her chest. What had he gotten himself involved in? And why was she now swept into this dangerous current against her will? Caleb turned sharply at the first intersection, tires screeching against asphalt as they sped away from the hospital, leaving everything behind. Emily felt a pang of guilt surge. Part of her wanted to scream out for James. He was still in there. He needed answers, and here she was running. What do we do now? She finally managed to ask, her voice barely above a whisper. Caleb glanced at her, the raw intensity in his gaze sending a shiver down her spine. We find a place to lay low. We need to figure out who we're up against and how we can protect him, even if it means uncovering things we shouldn't. A chill fell into her stomach. The truth seemed scarier than the chaos. What secrets lay hidden beneath the surface of James's world? The urgency hung in the air as they drove into the night, shadows creeping along the sides of the road like ghosts of the past. As a sense of helplessness swept over her, she leaned back, closing her eyes. But as her mind whirled around the unanswered questions, one thought burned fiercely. If they were in danger now, how much worse would it get when the truth emerged? And in that moment, she vowed to uncover whatever dark secrets loomed over James, even if it put them all at risk. Would she be brave enough to face whatever lay ahead? The car sped through the night, tires gripping the asphalt as they left the hospital behind, a place that had once signified safety, but now felt like a distant memory of warmth. The streets blurred past, and Emily's thoughts spiraled in a whirlwind of fear and adrenaline. What had James gotten into? And more importantly, what dangers were lurking in the shadows? Caleb stole quick glances at her, concern etched on his face. We'll find a safe place soon, he promised, though uncertainty hung in the air between them. What if whatever happened at the hospital is connected to whatever James is mixed up in? What if he's in danger and we're too late? Her words tumbled out, frantic. James is strong, Caleb replied, voice steady, yet the tightness in his expression betrayed a hint of worry. You know that. He'll be okay. But she couldn't share his calm. Her pulse raced as memories of James flooded her mind, his laughter, his determination, the love that radiated between them. She couldn't bear the thought of him being hurt, vulnerable, completely unaware of the storm brewing around him. Where are we going? She finally asked, the question barely escaping her lips. Caleb sighed, hands tightening on the wheel. There's a place I know, an old friend's house. It's off the grid. We can figure things out there. They drove in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The glow of streetlights cast fleeting shadows across Emily's face, revealing the determination in her eyes. She sensed that something much bigger was at play, pieces of a puzzle scattered in chaos. Unraveling it felt daunting, but the desire to protect James overshadowed her fear. Caleb, she said, breaking the silence once more. What do you think is happening? Why are people after us? Caleb hesitated, the weight of unspoken truths heavy in the air. James got tangled up in something, he said slowly, as if weighing his words carefully. Something dangerous. I thought we'd have more time to prepare, but what? She pressed, desperation creeping into her voice. He finally glanced over with grim resolve. But this is serious, Em. If we don't act fast, the stakes just keep getting higher. The ominous tone in his voice sent a chill down her spine. Racing through her mind were images of threats lurking in every corner, shadows transforming into figures with malevolent intent as they approached Caleb's friend's house. A quaint, unassuming structure nestled among towering trees. A flickering light broke the night's stillness. The small cabin seemed to breathe a sense of refuge, but even that comfort was overshadowed by their circumstances. Stay here, Caleb instructed as he parked. Let me check things out first. What if? Please trust me, Emily. Just stay low. Emily nodded, though the pit of anxiety in her stomach tightened. She watched him slip out of the car, heart hammering as he moved cautiously toward the door. She couldn't just sit idle. There had to be something she could do. Glancing at the rearview mirror, she scanned the darkness behind them, half expecting danger to emerge from the shadows. It would be so easy for someone to follow, to ambush them at any moment. Moments ticked by, feeling like hours, when finally she heard a soft knock on the passenger window. Caleb's sharp eyes lit up as he gestured urgently for her to open the door. There's no time, he hissed. We need to get inside. Now. Emily grabbed her bag and jumped out, feeling the chill of the night air bite against her skin. They rushed into the cabin, her pulse racing with every beat, thudding loudly in her ears. Everything felt heightened, raw and electric. The door closed behind them with an unsettling click, sealing them inside the cozy haven that suddenly felt like a cage. "We need to figure out next steps," Caleb breathed, glancing around. But the urgency lingered and Emily's stomach churned with uncertainty, a thought running through her mind like a whisper. How far down the rabbit hole would they have to go to save James? As they waited, shadows shifting against the walls, the weight of the moment loomed large. What awaited them beyond the door? Would the truth be their salvation, or would it lead to their undoing? Emily's heart raced. She had more questions than answers, and time was not on their side. The cabin was dim, the only source of light a flickering candle on the table, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. Emily's heart pounded as she leaned closer to Caleb, searching his face for any sign of reassurance, but all she found was grim determination. "Do you know what we're dealing with?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Caleb shook his head slowly. "Not exactly, but I suspect it's bigger than we thought. Whatever James got involved in, it wasn't just some small-time job. There are forces at play here, powerful ones." Fear twisted in her stomach. She thought of James, his bright smile, his dreams for the future. How could he have landed in such dangerous territory? "We have to find him, Caleb. We can't just sit here," she insisted, her voice trembling with urgency. Caleb's eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment a flicker of doubt crossed his face. What if we're too late? What if something happened to him already? Panic clawed at her throat. "No, we can't think that way. We have to believe he's okay. If we don't have hope, what do we have?" He let out a breath, weighing her words. She could see the internal battle within him. Finally he nodded, but not without a hint of hesitation. "Okay, we need a plan. First, let us see if I can reach out to someone who might know more. I'll use the burner phone." Emily watched as he retrieved a small, unassuming device from his pocket, its screen cracked but functional. She felt helpless as she waited, pacing the cramped space, her mind racing in a million directions. Caleb dialed a number, speaking in hushed tones, his expression shifting from concern to urgency to disbelief as he listened. Emily strained to catch snippets of the conversation, her heart sinking as she heard names, locations, and the word danger repeated more than once. "Who is it?" she asked as he ended the call, his face pale. "An old contact said there's been movement. People looking for James. They're not just looking to confront him. They want to eliminate any threats." His words hit her like a punch to the gut. Panic gripped her, twisting into fear for what James might be facing. "We have to warn him. He needs to know he's being targeted," she urged, desperation creeping into her voice. Caleb raked a hand through his hair, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "If we can find him in time. He's already put himself in jeopardy. We need to figure out our next move and fast." But she couldn't shake the feeling of time slipping away. They had to act, and soon. What if we set a trap? If they want him, then we need to give them a reason to come to us. "We can keep him safe until we figure out who these people are," she suggested, adrenaline coursing through her. Caleb regarded her with newfound respect. "You're thinking strategically. Maybe that's the way to go." The confidence she heard in his voice sparked a flicker of hope within her. Together they could outsmart whoever was after James. As they discussed their plan, her resolve solidified. She would not let fear dictate her actions. They needed every chance they could muster. Caleb stood up, urgency returning to his demeanor. "Let us move quickly. If we want to catch these guys off guard, we need to set the bait tonight." Just as they were about to step outside, a loud crash echoed from the back of the cabin. It sounded like something or someone had entered. Emily froze, heart racing. What was that? Caleb's eyes widened. "Stay here," he commanded softly, rushing toward the sound. "And no," she whispered, instinctively following him. They crept towards the sound, fear gnawing at their insides. What awaited them in that darkness? As they approached the back door, the silhouette of a figure loomed in the doorway, half hidden in shadows. With a single tense breath, Emily grasped Caleb's arm, barely able to contain the dread swelling within her. "Who's there?" Caleb called out, his voice steady despite the panic brimming inside Emily. The figure stepped into the dim light, revealing a familiar face. James was alive, but bloodied, barely standing, and his eyes bore the weight of horror. "Emily, help!" he gasped, collapsing into Caleb's arms, and in that moment all hope hung in the balance. What had he brought with him? And would they be able to conceal their growing threat long enough to escape? Emily's breath caught in her throat as she rushed to James's side, fear flooding her senses. "James! What happened?" She knelt beside him, panic rising as she noticed the blood seeping through his shirt, the pallor of his skin casting his usual warmth into an icy shade. "Caleb, we need to get him somewhere safe," she urged, her voice trembling with urgency. She could feel the rising tide of desperation as she glanced up at her friend. Caleb was already assessing the situation, his mind racing. "Let us get him inside." Caleb's voice held urgency, but there was also a protectiveness that Emily hadn't noticed before. Together they hoisted James off the ground, their hearts pounding with each step toward the cabin. As they laid James down on the table, Emily felt the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders. He was hurt and time was working against them. "Caleb, we need to stop the bleeding," she said, tearing a piece of her shirt to make a makeshift bandage. On it, he responded, gathering supplies. The tension was thick, her feelings a chaotic mix of fear, relief, and raw determination. She couldn't let anything happen to him. "Not now. What did you get yourself into?" she murmured while applying pressure, her fingers shaky yet firm against his wound. James was still conscious, his eyes fluttering open and closed, barely holding on to awareness. I was trying to get away. They found me," he whispered, a rasp in his voice that sent chills down her spine. "They're not just after me. It's bigger." Emily exchanged a worried glance with Caleb, both understanding the unspoken danger that loomed. "What do you mean?" she pressed, her heart racing as James struggled to form coherent sentences. "They have connections, powerful people. I found out too much," he gasped, pain flashing across his face. "They will come for all of us. Just keep your guard up. James, we're gonna figure this out." "Just hold on," Emily replied, trying to keep control of her own spiraling fears. A small part of her wanted to scream, to shake him until he made sense, but she knew that wouldn't help. Caleb was quick and efficient. He poured antiseptic over the wound and tightened the bandage around it. "We need to stitch this up properly once we're a bit more secure." "I can drive you to the hospital," Caleb said, scanning the room for any potential exits or threats. "No," James protested weakly but urgently. "If they know where I am, they'll follow. We have to lay low. Just trust me." Two conflicting thoughts waged war in Emily's mind. One begged her to take James to safety, to let the experts handle it. The other insisted they had to stay, to protect him from a worse fate. "What do you think?" Emily asked, desperation lacing her tone as she looked between the two men. She knew James was right, but the fear of staying felt almost insurmountable. Caleb seemed to pick up on her doubt. "We can barricade the doors. If they're coming for him, it'll be better for us to regroup." With no time to waste, they worked quickly, piling furniture against the doors, fortifying their meager shelter. James lay on the table, winced but nodded his approval of the plan even through pain. As they made their preparations, the atmosphere shifted. A sense of impending dread wrapped around them, the air thick with uncertainty. Every creak of the floorboards echoed through the silence of the cabin, making Emily jump. Suddenly, a loud banging erupted from the door they had just barricaded. Emily's heart froze in panic. "They're here!" she shouted, scrambling to her feet. Caleb stepped forward, his expression steely. "We need to hide." He grabbed Emily's arm and pulled her toward a closet in the corner, glancing back at James, who struggled to sit up. "No time. You need to stay safe." James spoke with a forcefulness that caught them both off guard. "What if it's too late?" Emily whispered, her heart thundering as the banging grew more insistent. "We have to hold on." Together, Caleb replied, the weight of his conviction grounding her. As they prepared to dive into the shadows, another crash sounded. This time the door burst open, and dark figures erupted into the cabin. "Get down!" Caleb yelled. Everything spun into chaos. Would they be able to survive the storm, protect James, and escape the looming menace? The tension in the air was palpable, and Emily squeezed her eyes shut, praying for a miracle. And then, in the midst of the chaos, Her thoughts turned to something else, the surprise she had promised James just before all of this began. Would she have a chance to share that with him? Or would this be their last stand? The room was a whirlwind of muffled voices and shifting shadows. Emily huddled next to Caleb, their breath mingling in the silence, hearts racing as heavy boots thudded against the wooden floor. She strained to listen, her eyes darting to James, who lay pale and still. "Search everywhere," a gruff voice commanded. Panic surged in Emily's chest. Who were these people? What had James gotten involved in? The darkness seemed to creep closer, and she couldn't shake the prickling fear that their time was running out. Caleb's hand tightened around hers. "We need to stay quiet. They might just look for him in the obvious places," he whispered. His eyes filled with determination. Every instinct within her screamed to run, to save James, but they were trapped, cornered like wild animals. The men swept through the cabin, their movements heavy and clumsy. Emily tried to steady her breathing, focusing on the rhythm of her heart, counting the seconds between each loud crash of furniture being tossed aside. How could this be happening? She could hear footsteps approaching their hiding spot. She bit her lip, fighting the urge to whimper with fear. The closet was small, cramped, and the air felt suffocating. Caleb pressed a finger to his lips. His intense gaze locked on the door. A shadow fell across the closet entrance. Emily held her breath, praying they wouldn't find them. The figure paused, scanning the room before moving on, the threat still palpable but slightly diminished for the moment. "I wish we had a backup plan," she whispered, her voice trembling. "We'll think of something," Caleb replied, eyes narrowing. "Do you trust me?" "I do," her heart said, even if her mind raced with doubt. Trust was easy when things were calm, but this chaos shifted everything. Then, another shout echoed through the cabin. "Yes, not in here. Keep looking." He couldn't have gone far. Emily braced for another violent upheaval, and as the men entered the main room again, the tension stilled for a moment. She caught a glimpse of one of the intruders, a tall man dressed in dark tactical gear. His face was obscured, but she sensed the menace in his stance. Suddenly, a loud crash sounded, followed by the unmistakable voice of James, rising defiantly in pain. "What do you want with me? Just tell us what you found out," the first man barked. "James!" Emily gasped softly, her heart sinking. What were they threatening him with? What had they done already? "Stay here," Caleb hissed as he edged toward the open closet door, ready to act. "No." Emily grabbed his arm, fear flooding her senses. "What if they see you? You can't go out there. What if they hurt you too? I have to protect you both. You think they care if I'm in the way?" He snapped, desperation in his tone. The violent tension in the room snapped to a boiling point. Caleb's jaw clenched, the choice heavy between taking action or sitting back. "Just a few more moments," Emily encouraged, her eyes pleading. "He can handle them, let us just see what happens." They remained crouched, every heartbeat drumming through the silence like a countdown. Emily's mind screamed for a way out. Mustering courage, she whispered, "Caleb, we need to find a weapon, anything we can use." Caleb nodded slightly, focusing on the kitchen. There were knives, heavy pots. She felt a flicker of hope. Maybe they could surprise the intruders. Just then, a bone-chilling shriek cut through the air, the sound of pain that made Emily's skin crawl. "James!" she cried, countering the urge to rush out and save him. The men became agitated, voices clashing as they shouted back and forth, each word heavy with threat. Emily couldn't permit herself to panic, but hope was slipping like sand between her fingers. "Get ready," Caleb's voice was calm but urgent. "We will not let this hold us back." Before she could respond, the sounds of a struggle resumed. She could hear James, his breathing labored, fighting the odds as he struggled against them. "James, hold on." She breathed deeply, both fear and determination intermingling. Would they truly be able to get through this nightmare together? And just as she was about to break down, a loud crash reverberated through the cabin again. The air became charged with danger. The question still hung heavy. Would they find the strength to fight back? Or would they pay the ultimate price for the secrets hidden in the dark? Emily felt the world tilt on its axis as James's scream echoed in her mind. She struggled to breathe, feeling the tightness in her chest, each frantic heartbeat pushing her closer to a decision. "We need to do something now," she urgently whispered to Caleb, her grip tightening on his arm. Caleb's face was set in a mask of determination, but she could see the flicker of doubt flash behind his eyes. "We wait for the right moment," he insisted, "but we have to be ready." Emily could barely contain herself. The thought of James being hurt of what they might be doing to him was unbearable. She closed her eyes for a moment, tapping into the memory of their last carefree moments together, laughing over dinner, planning their futures. That future felt miles away now. The sound of scuffling grew louder, a chorus of men shouting and James breathing heavily as he continued to fight them off. "Emily!" he cried out desperately, and that single word set her on fire. She made a decision in that instant. "Enough," she said firmly, her voice steadying with purpose. "We can't let him face them alone." "Are you sure?" Caleb asked, his eyes wide with concern. "I'm sure." She looked at him with resolve. "We'll fight together." Caleb nodded, capturing the spark of determination they needed. Without another word, they crept toward the door of the closet, hearts pounding in synchrony, adrenaline pushing them forward as they peered out into the chaos beyond. The room was a disaster. Furniture was overturned, and the once quiet cabin now felt alive with chaos. Emily saw James struggling against two of the intruders, his face drawn with pain but his spirit unbroken. "Caleb, we'll need those knives," she whispered. Caleb nodded again and sprang into action, moving like a shadow towards the kitchen. She watched as he snagged a sharp knife, then another, both glinting menacingly in his hands. "Ready?" he asked, his voice a low growl. Emily took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." They slipped out of the closet and into the chaos, adrenaline coursing through their veins. Emily's heart raced not only with fear but also an unyielding drive to save James. They had to make it count. Emily's eyes darted around, searching for anything that could give them an advantage. She spotted a heavy skillet lying on the floor near the kitchen entrance. Could be just what they needed. "I'll grab that." As she lunged for it, Caleb slipped further into the fray, heading right toward the men. The surprise of their sudden combined attack caught the intruders off guard. Emily could hardly believe they had gone from hiding to fighting. With a desperate swing of the skillet, she caught one of the intruders in the side, just as Caleb tackled another to the ground. The two men fell in a tangle of limbs, but in an instant more shadows moved toward them. Reinforcements were coming. "James! Get up!" Emily yelled. Hope and fear intertwined in her voice as she watched him struggle against the last man holding him. Their eyes met. The urgency in those fleeting seconds ignited her resolve. He was still fighting. They all were. The clash of bodies and the sounds of the struggle reverberated around her, and suddenly the tide turned. James broke free, delivering a hard punch to the man who had been restraining him. In that moment the three of them surged as a unit against their captors. But even as they attacked, dread crept in. More men were entering the cabin, faces obscured by darkness. Could they hold off this escalating threat? And then, just as victory flickered on the horizon, a shadowy figure appeared at the door, the one thing they never expected to see. Emily dropped the weapon. The voice boomed and her heart dropped. "Is that?" she began, unsure if she could trust her own eyes, as their world spiraled deeper into chaos. The looming threat posed a question that echoed in her mind: who could possibly save them now, when every hope seemed all but lost? The tremors of uncertainty shook Emily to her core as she turned to face the last voice she expected to hear. Standing at the doorframe was a familiar figure clad in dark clothing, his expression unreadable. It was none other than Alex, James's estranged older brother, the one they thought long gone from their lives. He looked different, harder, more dangerous. A small army of men cursed and traded shouts behind him. "Alex!" Emily's voice wavered, disbelief twisting her gut. "What are you doing here? Put the weapon down now," he commanded, locking eyes with her, urgency flashing through his dark gaze. But before she could respond, Caleb took a faltering step back, confusion spreading across his features. "You?" Caleb whispered, disbelief palpable in the air. "Why are you?" "Enough questions. They've come for James. We have to get out. Now," Alex interrupted, eyes darting around the room, scanning for any threats. It was a stark reminder of those fleeting moments before chaos struck, an unholy alliance formed from desperation and mistrust. "Not until you explain," James growled, struggling to his feet, his muscles taut with defiance. The remnants of blood still glistened on his shirt. "Why are you here? What's really going on?" Time slowed. They were all on edge, sweat glistening on brows. Alex stepped further into the room, towering over them. I never wanted to come back. Not until I had no choice. His gaze swept over them, trapping them with a storm of emotion. But you're all in danger because of me. Emily strained to process it all. Danger how? It's not just about your company, James. It's deeper than that. I tried to protect you by staying away, but after I left, I got tangled up with the wrong group, and they're after me now. You just happened to be caught in the crosshairs. His words burned with conviction, each syllable hitting them harder than the last. A loud crash echoed through the room as the intruders began to regroup, renewed strength evident in their shouts. Emily's heart raced. This was no longer just about James. Their lives flashed before her eyes in shades of confusion and desperation. Then we will fight together, she shouted, adrenaline flowing through her veins as she slipped her grip from the skillet's handle, determination locking her in place. Alex's face twisted with astonishment, but there was something else, a glint of respect. We don't have time for sentiment, he insisted. They'll be here any second. But Emily shook her head. No, if they want James, they'll come for us too. We can't run anymore. Let us trap them. Caleb nodded, idea firing up his expression. We use the cabin to our advantage. Emily, get anything you can to barricade the windows while I set up in here, he declared, urgency igniting the air around them as the room swirled with panic. They worked quickly, adrenaline drowning their fears out as they moved in a furious rhythm. Emily found the heavier furniture and began to shove it against the windows, her heart pounding and cheeks flushed. Alex grabbed one of the knives off the kitchen counter while James remained close, steadying himself, grit etched on his face. Emily. Alex focused on her, urgency lacing his voice. Once we make our stand, we'll fight, but we need to stick together. No rogue moves, got it? Got it, she whispered, her resolve strengthening. It wasn't the time for second-guessing. They were a team, no matter how unconventional. With the barricades in place, they caught their breath, waiting, heart strong with determination. The loud thuds of unfamiliar boots drew closer, the air tinged with disbelief and defiance. Remember what I said. We stick together and we're going to take them down, no matter what it takes, James said, his voice low and steady, drawing strength from the enormity of the moment. As the front door buckled under the weight of relentless shoves, silence hung heavy. Emily peered through a grimy window, hope and fear swirling as dark shapes moved just beyond the barricade. She felt the intensity of the situation reverberate in her bones. They were standing together, against the storm, ready to make their own fate. The door finally burst open with a deafening crack. Shadows erupted into the cabin, ready to envelop them. But this time they felt so much more than fear. They felt unity. Together. Emily shouted as they launched themselves into the fight. It was chaos. Each movement blurred as adrenaline powered them, and they fought as one. James struck with newfound strength, fueled by the realization that perhaps this family and their love were worth protecting. And through the storm of fists and shouts, Emily understood that they could rewrite their story. Together, they fought with passion and purpose. No longer were they isolated by their worlds. As they battled and pushed through the chaos, the night air filled with new hope, ignited by their unyielding spirit. Perhaps it was this moment that would define them, a test of commitment, courage, and love. It was then that she realized. This was not just the end of their fight. It was the start of a new chapter for each of them, so let that light within shine bright. Their journey wasn't over. It was just beginning. But through every twist and turn they would face it together side by side. And that's where we end this chapter, but you've just witnessed the incredible transformation of Emily, James, and Caleb. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this emotional finale. We want to hear from you. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. It's time to stand together.